Here we are. Welcome to our fireside chat behind the brand and inside the can, the Pringles Super Bowl story. So glad you all could make it. I have my two friends here from Kellanova, Diane and Mauricio. And my name is Mckenna. I'm an Insights Account Manager at 8451. So let's get into it. I'm sure all of us are eager to hear how both of you are creating these powerful brand stories. So tell us a little bit more about your roles and your involvement in the Super Bowl process. We'll start with Diane.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Diane Sayler. Kellanova is Kellogg, just to clarify really quickly. We've recently gone through a company transition, and so if you don't know what Kellanova is, just think Kellogg from before. So it's new, it's about 4 months. So I've been with Kellogg, now Kellanova, for about 6 years. My role is I'm the Senior Director of Full Funnel Marketing for our salty snacks category. So I have had the pleasure of working on 7 Super Bowl campaigns for Pringles, and I also work on our Cheez-It and Cracker portfolio marketing. I'm also on our transformation team as we try to figure out data-driven marketing and full funnel marketing as a CPG. Thanks for having me.
Mauricio.
Yes, Mauricio Jenkins. I lead the Pringles business here in the US. And I have a long story with the Pringles brand. I actually was part of the acquisition when it was in P&G, and I helped with the integration of the business in Latin America, so I spent a couple of years in Mexico. And then I came back to the US to lead the global business, and now I'm managing a fantastic brand business, and of course, doing a lot of great things as part of the big game and a lot of other things to do with the brand.
That's great. And it's, as you mentioned, Kellanova has participated in Super Bowl for 7 consecutive years. Pringles ad has actually become a really anticipated event for Super Bowl. And so, we've seen Pringles sales jump 25% in the week leading up. So, Mauricio, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the ideation and execution process in creating stories like this.
Yeah, it's always a great time, after the big game goes on. We get together, of course, with the agencies, understand what worked, what didn't work, really learn about it. And this time, and one of the things you'll see always is that, and it's a big part of the process, listening, what's going out there, what are some of the conversations, what is our consumers, what are they talking about, how are they talking about the brand. And this time, when we sat down, one of the things that they brought to us is that, do you know that there's like 30,000, I believe is the number, mentions of people saying, we are seeing Mr. P, the Pringles guy, our character, in things, right? That they were just finding out, like, hey, my uncle looks like him, or I see a rug, or, there's a cloud, or like there was even a coffee, foam on the latte. So that inspired the idea, because one of the things we always like to do is to make sure that the idea has a very strong connection with the brand, right? But also that it can lead up to an entertaining story that people are going to engage with and going to participate with. And that's pretty much the genesis of our idea this time. So what we decided as part of the creative, and you're going to see that, we're going to see it in a second, it's bringing that story to life. So we partner with a fantastic person, Mr. Chris Pratt, who's by chance Mr. P, by coincidence. And this tells a story of him going through this process. So he goes somewhere, so that person tells him, "Man, you look like the Pringles guy." And then a series of situations, very funny situations, start to happen. And our world now, a lot of things happen very fast, and he gets offered an opportunity of a lifetime. So you're gonna get a chance to see that in the video. It's a fantastic story with a brand at the center of the story. So please, let's roll it.
Wow. It's so funny how Chris Pratt is such a great fit, for the brand. I know, do we want to do a round of applause for that? And when we think about Pringles as a brand, y'all are so unique. It's such a unique snack in the way it's delivered, and when we think about the entire snacking category, it's huge, right? Like, snacking sales go up, I think, 11% leading up to Super Bowl. And so knowing there's so many players out there, and even Kellanova, you all have so many really amazing brands to play with for things like this. How did you go about selecting Pringles as the hero for your Super Bowl ads?
Yeah, no, that is, you're absolutely right. So, and I I think a lot of people who would know that this moment, the weeks during the playoffs, or the weeks leading up to the big game, it's some of the most important weeks for the salty snacks category in terms of sales. So it is definitely an important moment for the category and for us, but it's very challenging. I mean, there's a lot of competition, a lot of big players, not only in our category, but everything. And one of the things we look at, you want to win that share of the table that it's in everybody's house on Sunday. They're going to have the party. So that's where the fight is. How do we make sure that you're going to be the food that people are going to either bring to their kids are going to ask for, that people are going to go back and forth, and you want to make sure you have enough stock in the bag to eat. So that's really where the battle is, and it's a matter of being physically available in stores. Of course, you want to make sure that people can buy you, but really be mentally available. And I think we mentioned that in a couple of the previous talks before, that you have to be there mentally, so people, when they're going to go and make the purchase, they're thinking of you. So those are real, but at the same time, you have to make sure that you are able to craft stories and bring ideas to life that are going to break through, that are going to be differentiated, because there's a lot of great communication and ads that everybody's doing. So that's one of the things I think why we continue to think of Pringles as the best choice, one of the best choices we have amongst our portfolio, because of the uniqueness of the brand. We have a lot of distinctive brand assets, things that we can connect, that we can create very entertaining stories, and are going to resonate very well with people. And by the time they're going to do their purchase cycle, they're going to be thinking about us. So that's why we think Pringles will continue to be our top choice as we continue to be part of the game.
It's great to hear. It seems like it's working for you. I guess, Diane, going along the lines of being unique, when we think about the traditional Super Bowl ad, it is brand plus celebrity. And you all have done that very well. We just saw it. But Kellanova seems to have this recipe or model that enables you to have year-over-year success. And so what is so special about Kellanova's Super Bowl ads that resonates very well with your consumers?
Yeah, I'll start by talking about celebrity. So we don't necessarily think about celebrity as only being a person. And we certainly don't start with the idea of we have to have a celebrity in the ad. It really starts with the idea, and then we figure out what is essentially the element of celebrity that we need to bring to it to break through in a Super Bowl environment and give it that, kind of bigness that is required to play at this stage. So over our years, yes, we have hired celebrities like we did this year to co-create with us and star in our ad. Our very first year, we worked with Bill Hader, and the ad was very much, about centralized on him. But in other years, our celebrity factor has come from music licensing. So, for example, a really catchy Tina Turner song was in our ad last year, Simply the Best. We've worked with Rick and Morty, if anyone knows that show. So we co-created with them. So the celebrity in our minds doesn't have to be a single person. I also think that there's the idea of celebrity who's central to your ad, and then there's cameos. And so last year, we worked with Meghan Trainor in our ad, and she played a cameo and helped us with our teaser, but she really helped us carry our campaign into social because she is like one of the queens of TikTok. And we were able to use her song, which was having a moment at the time. So I think, it's very strategic choices of what does the ad and the idea need from a quote-unquote celebrity versus saying, and we're going to look at these 6 faces and these 6 names in the ad. So that's my commentary on celebrity. In terms of bringing it to life, we do not think about Super Bowl as one day. A couple of years ago, we had to convince our executives that the good thing to do is actually release your ad before the game, right? So they were very precious. Oh, we can't do that. You have to save it. It has to be for Super Bowl. And that's just a very old school way of thinking. Sorry if that's your strategy. I would actually recommend you reconsider. But, so what we think about Super Bowl is the 60 days of Super Bowl. And so through a concerted group of efforts, what we call tease the tease, a teaser, and then the ad reveal, everything is very scheduled and it's orchestrated, and we're trying to tell a story. We know exactly what the story is that we want to play out in the press and in social, and that buzz driving that we bring to the elements of the 60 days of Super Bowl. The news cycle after Super Bowl is pretty short, especially in an election year. not that we're gonna have to deal with that this year, but a couple years ago, it was like the day after Super Bowl, everyone was just flipping to politics, right? So when we think about getting ahead, we just got a text from our agency this morning that we've actually already hit our goal for the year, and it's not even Sunday, so in terms of impressions. So it really shows you how important it is to tell that story in advance. So in addition to our teasers, we actually start running ads that are football themed for encouraging consumers to stock up on Pringles. So we participate in the football viewing occasion in our OLV, in our OLM, and in our social as essentially participants in the occasion. And then when we start rolling out the creative for the game, it feels really natural because consumers are already thinking about us as something that they might consider for their party or a player in Super Bowl advertising. And with us, in-store is a key piece of it too. So Mauricio mentioned Pringles. We actually start football work for Kellanova in August when the football season begins because one of our other brands is a college football playoff sponsor. And so Super Bowl and this kind of Jan-Feb timeframe allows us to hold that coveted display space in store and continue to encourage people to buy our brands for their football viewing occasions. We just sort of switched from a college message to an NFL message, and then of course participating in all the fun and magic that makes Super Bowl so entertaining to watch.
That's great, and I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that process, especially as it relates to consumers and how they're behaving. For those of you that don't know 8451, we are a retail data science, insights, and media company, and we know that consumer behavior is constantly evolving. I'm sure all of us know that as it relates to their purchase decisions, what they're buying, how they're celebrating. So how are you looking at that Super Bowl marketing funnel as it relates to consumers?
Yeah, so I actually, Joe, my title recently became full funnel marketing. Previously was integrated marketing. And then we're buying a Super Bowl ad, which is kind of the antithesis, right, of customized, personalized marketing through the funnel. It's as upper funnel as it can get. So while what we do is we watch the upper funnel and the huge reach that we can gain through our campaign, not just on game day, but in those 60 days leading up. And we think about how we parlay kind of that journey all the way to store. So we don't try to copy paste it into store. Actually, I heard Mondale speaking this morning about their campaign with Oreo and Ritz. Getting a lot of great displays in store. The portfolio display is really important for CPGs. So we create something in store that's complementary to football, and then we also look to kind of put a cherry on top of it with some additional Pringles point of purchase, like complementary activities. So this year we have a great partnership with Molson Coors and Pringles, and so you'll see that kind of getting out of the snack section, additional displays on the floor when people are shopping for snacks on game day. So it's, yes, broad awareness, getting in their head that kind of memory encoding before they go to the store that they recently saw something from Pringles and they were entertained and they liked it. But then the basics of in-store as well as omni, our efforts expand into omni, which is growing very rapidly for CPG, with sort of big game and that entertaining message that we know really matters for our shopper.
That's great. And thinking about that approach, that whole process that you're going through, we all know ROI is vital. And so curious to know how you are defining success. Is it sales? Is it reach? Is it households? When we looked at your households last year for Pringles, 60% were new, so they had never bought Pringles. There's a metric right there. So how are you looking across all of these measures and determining what is that gold standard?
Yeah. As a person who has to negotiate the actual ad buy, ROI is really important to me. And as Mauricio signs off on talent contracts, it's very important to him. So it's important for everyone in our company. It's not one thing, is what I'll tell you. Do we run an MMM on the Super Bowl ad? Sure. Do we look at it and slice it and dice it a couple different ways where we try to get like a campaign read that combines social and maybe combines the OLV and all of the other assets that we're able to run featuring Chris Pratt or around the campaign? Yeah, we will, and those numbers are important. But we also look beyond just the numbers. So we have deployed a process in partnership with our PR and influencer agency, Weber Shandwick, called Reach and Heat. So this is a proprietary process that we use for our Kellanova brands, where we don't just look at the number. I know earlier I told you we were celebrating passing a numbers goal, but it is important, and it helps you understand your reach. But if you're not reaching the right people, it's not going to end up with stats like Mckenna just cited there about new households. So the heat metric helps us understand if it's who we wanted to talk to, who we wanted to reach. And then within heat, there are several different indicators that help us understand purchase intent, sentiment behind what it is that we showed them, and it kind of becomes a directional, like a guiding star that tells us that that reach mattered, or you reached, in a campaign maybe that didn't perform as well, you reached a ton of households, but you sort of missed the mark with who you were intending to reach. So that tool, we deployed it for the first time in earnest for Super Bowl last year, and it really enhanced our reporting and helped us inform what were the critical pieces to add into our experience plan for this year. And then beyond that, yeah, things like penetration and sales at the end of the day are extremely important to us, as they are obviously to our retailers as well. So traditional metrics for us, MMM, sales, penetration, those things will never go away, but we are continuing to look at how can we deepen those softer directional metrics that help tell us we've actually got it right more from a creative side, because that's the nuances that like a straight number is never going to tell you.
That's a really neat insight how you're looking to optimize all of those different metrics. I'm actually going to pivot. Mauricio, this question is more about Kellanova, and your organization, both your organization, has been going through an exciting evolution from Kellogg's to now Kellanova, new snacking powerhouse. How do you expect the vision or creative process for Pringles Super Bowl ads to change, if at all?
Good, thank you. It's been a very active year for us, as you can imagine, with all the transition but Kellanova is here. And actually, this morning, very early, this was 9 a.m. in Eastern time. So this morning was earnings release. So the company is on track. The company is delivering on the vision. And when we look at the potential, the opportunity, and the plan that we have in front of us, is exciting. It's all about, and it's all, as you mentioned, snacking powerhouse, and also with having the brands at the forefront of what that is. So I think what we have seen, and we are witness in front of that because we're working on these type of things, is that there's an appetite for boldness. It's an appetite for really the brands doing bigger and bigger things. And for us, it was a big responsibility because this is the first big game of the first year of the company. So a lot of people are going to be, keeping an eye on that. So that was as we started to do the work, as we had every single meeting from briefing to developing the creatives, to testing, to everything, building the experience plan together. It was that ambition of making things bigger. How do we drive more breakthrough? How do we connect in a stronger way with consumers? And I think that's really the shift that we're seeing from now having the mindset of being Kellanova, and it's not only for our branding, for what we do, but also reflects on what you're going to see from the company moving forward.
I'm excited to see how you all continue to get hyper-focused on snacking especially. So last question, Diane, what can brands learn from Kellanova's Super Bowl approach, whether it's before the game, during the game, after the game? What are those most valuable aspects that brands should keep in mind?
Yeah, I mean, every marketer who gets a chance to put an ad in the game has a ton of pressure on their shoulders because we've all watched the game, and armchair marketers are the harshest people out there, right? Like, oh, that sucked. You're like, okay, cool, thanks. Like, I just spent 7 months working on it. But at the end of the day, the people in the court of opinion of the public matters. When people don't remember who the ad was from, that's the worst thing that could happen. Oh, it was an ad, and it had a puppy, and they were on a mountain, and I don't know what it was for, but I loved it. You're like, oh, that's great, but you don't remember anything about the brand. So for us, my advice for other marketers considering not just Super Bowl creative, but any good creative that's memorable, is figuring out what it is about your brand that makes you want to tell a story. So for us this year, it's the inside of Mr. P. In previous years, we've played up the idea of people really do get their hands stuck in the Pringles can, and that was what our ads were for the last 2 years. People email us and say, make the cans bigger. We were like, well, there's a reason they're the size they are, but and then even before that, it was flavor stacking. So the idea of stacking 3 different unique flavors of Pringles to give you a different flavor experience, only we can do that. You can't do that with a bag of potato chips. They're not going to nestle that way, right? A bag is not going to get stuck on your hand. And there's no one like Mr. P. So when we think about where we start from, that's what we start from. Then you have to make it entertaining. Then you have to make it memorable. And so for us, the memory, the memory element, the sizzle that makes it Super Bowl worthy is the part that actually is like the fun part. That's like the art, and the science is kind of where we start from. And so my advice would be make an ad that no one else can make, because it only is for your brand. It doesn't make sense for any other brand to tell the same story that you're telling. Insert any other brand in that and it doesn't make any sense. And so, that's where we've really sort of rooted the beginning of our ideation. And I mean, we've had years where, yes, some of the years we've had higher, rankings than others, but at the end of the day, if you love it or hate it, usually you remember it was a Pringles ad, which for us, no press is kind of bad press at the Super Bowl. They're talking, right? And they're talking about your brand. So for us, it's like, how do you know it's us? And then let's entertain you and make you like love the brand that we are, because everybody likes Pringles. That's what we have on our side is nice. Like most people don't say, oh, Pringles, like, they don't taste that good. Like most people are like, I love Pringles. And that's fun to work on a brand like that. So it's harnessing that energy and love for the brand with something that only that brand can do.
Great advice. I think we might have time for questions.
Hi, David Patch, NIL Ventures. Just a question on collegiate sports. And I know the Cheez-It brand has been your primary brand for that. Love to know what you're thinking. It's a whole wild west right now, but have you tried anything with collegiate athletes, student athletes, and NIL? What's your thoughts on the future of NIL, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. This is a super fun part of my job. So we've done NIL for both Pringles and Cheez-It. With Pringles last year, we worked with players for, we have to call it hoops. We can't call it March Madness. But during hoops, who had epic facial hair, much like our very own Mr. P, and did content with them. We created like custom cans that we sent them that they shared on social media. So Pringles is dipping our toe in, but definitely learning from brother Cheez-It next door, where we are very advanced in the college space. So we have been a college football playoff sponsor for many years. We just re-signed as an official sponsor of the college football playoff. We had at one point 2 bowl games. We're down to 1, so we have the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl. And within the storytelling that we do during college season, the athletes are really important to us. So this year, we worked with athletes to actually bring a philanthropic element to our Cheez-It football campaign. And we were partners with Extra Yards for Teachers. So we gave athletes the chance to reach out to a teacher or a former coach in their life who had made a really big difference and help them feel the cheesiest every day, which is a line that we use a lot for Cheez-It. And we had them do a surprise call. It was a Zoom call for most of them. There was one that was in person, and it was very heartfelt. Anybody who has any sort of involvement in your child's PTA, for anyone with kids, the money is tight in schools these days, even in affluent communities. And so we allowed these teachers to apply those funds from Cheez-It to help continue to share that idea of like feeling the cheesiest with their own students and the teams there. So we've been really lucky. Our foray into NIL has been really strong for Kellanova. We have great partners who help us because the regulations are constantly changing. Mid-campaign, 2 years ago, it like changed on the fly of like what was allowed and what wasn't allowed by the NCAA, and that can be really frustrating. But I do find you need a partner who is very skilled in the space to identify the athletes you're working with, but then also be really familiar with the regulations and how to work with the schools themselves for the approvals. So I don't believe that, you asked about the future of it. I don't believe this is something that we personally would ever try to take on in-house just because it is really still evolving so much. There's not a static playbook. It's changing almost every 2-3 months. Every sport is different and every school is different. So finding a really good partner to guide you through is, I would say, a critical piece as you dip your toe into the NIL space. And then just make sure that the people you're hiring actually like your food and are really authentic. We have to do, it sounds silly, but like, let's make sure they're not gluten-free, right? Before they work with Cheez-It. So it's like little things like that, you have to check the authenticity and make sure that they really are like fans of your brands, and then the content comes out way better.
Hi, Maya Burton is Crazy Coupon Lady. So I think it was, Mckenna, you gave a stat that 60% of new buyers that the Pringles brand was able to bring last year. What do you think attributed to that increase in household penetration? It's a 2-part question. The second part is, what are you doing to retain those to become brand loyalists for Pringles?
So, I mean, remember last year there was also that dynamic that we were going, towards the end of the behaviors of the pandemic. So we did see a very high increase of people reconnecting with the category. We have a lot of lapsed and light users, so whenever we get a chance to really remind them of what Pringles is out there, we get a lot of those households back. And that's one of the big roles that we play with the big game. So that really was happening there. And then, in turn, I'm also going to open it up here for Diane to give even more details, but that's a big part of our job, is really making sure that we hit the full funnel. And not only when we do these activations for the big game, we have a full plan throughout the year. Earn plays a big part of what we do. We make it a priority to make sure that we hit that awareness, social, to make sure that we're engaging. And then we complete that with full activations in store, where, of course, coupons plays a big part of what we do there, but we make sure we have our features, displays, all the different programs that we have to have in store, so when people go there, see us, but also sometimes even if they don't see our awareness programs, I mean, they will interrupt them in the store, because it's a very, as you know, highly impulsive category, so we have to interrupt them sometimes to make sure that we get that incremental purchase.
And I would add that our data strategy absolutely intends to retain those who are heavy brand engagers. So our in-store promotions are definitely leading you to a destination where you can opt in to hear more from us, where we can get your data, where we can retarget you, we can build audiences around those who are our loyal consumers. We can segment our audiences by recruit, retain, and reclaim, and like the data that's available now of guiding consumers through the funnel is really impressive, but it's also a lot for marketers to figure out, and then figure out how to then deploy it all of the places where you're already deploying media. It opens up Pandora's box of questions. That's a big part of my new job, is figuring out our transformation strategy to better utilize our data. And we're moving from a company-wide loyalty program to more brand-led loyalty programs, which have a lower barrier of entry in terms of data exchange. So instead of a form where you maybe were submitting a receipt before and then telling us 7 fields of data, we've been able to move to like a light version of that, where it's name, email, age, check the box. And so that alone is a lower barrier for a lot of consumers. If the value exchange is there, that they'll give you your data, then you give them something in return. So 1P data is really important to us, and as a CPG, it's actually where we lose visibility as we go through the funnel with our retail media partners, who at this point are keeping that fairly close to the vest. So it's not a sexy way to end, but first party data is actually important too, even in the Super Bowl strategy.
Well, thank you both so much for your time. I think we're all excited to see Mr. P during the big game on Sunday, so thank you very much.
Thank you.